I'm Jason, and this is Level Up Hobbies, where I build, paint, and play tabletop games. Now today I'm going to show you how to spice up your orc models by painting on the checks and dags that the orcs love to decorate their vehicles and armor with. If you're like me, you like adding small details like this to really spice up your army, but you don't want those to take a lot of effort or time to do. So I'm going to show you a couple methods to paint both the checks and dags that are very quick and very effective. They look great on your models. So let's go ahead, let's start painting, and I'll see you at the end.
Now the first method we're going to use here is probably the most commonly used amongst probably orc hobbyists, and that is just sketching in your grid pattern and then filling in the squares. This is a very quick method. You just divide your plate up with however many rows and columns you want, and then you proceed to sketch in that grid pattern for however many squares or checks that you want on this. So on mine here, I just kind of measure out how wide I'm going to make these columns, and then just draw in the lines and make that grid. As you can see, like once you get your grid filled out and you start painting in every other checker, it really starts to look pretty good. So just take your time with this, don't rush it, and you'll have a great checker pattern for your orcs. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you want to clean up some of the lines, just grab your base color, like the red here, and just go in and tidy up those lines, and it'll make your checks look great. Now the next method is a little bit more difficult, but still fairly simple. And you're just going to draw squares on here. Now for this, you want to make sure that your paint is thinned so you can keep a nice sharp point on your paintbrush. If you can't get that point, then it's going to be very difficult to make these checks. And for this, you're just going to start by drawing one, and then at one of the corners, you're going to draw another square, and then another and another to make that checker pattern. I use this method probably more often than not with my boys, like to put checks and stuff on shoulder pads. And any small areas that I want to fill in real quick. It's an easy method to do, and if you mess up, you can just go in with your base color and even up those checks, and it looks great because it looks like it was painted on there by some orcs, and that's the intention. Once you get your checks all defined and filled in, you can go back in and start adding some highlights. And this just makes them look a little bit more dimensional. Here I just used a cool gray for the black checks, and then I go back in with some ceramite white to really make a bright white highlight for those white checks. The third method I'm going to show you here involves creating a checker mask, just with some masking tape that I have sliced up into very thin strips and then cut those then again into squares. and you just take those out, or take those and just lay them out however you see fit. You know, make whatever pattern, checker style that you like, and then once you have those on, make sure you press them on really well, and then you can go in and paint those checkers in. Or in this case, some cases I'll do this and I'll use an airbrush. Makes it very, making the checkers very easy. And if you get any type of bleed from this, you can just go back in with your base color and tidy up those squares. Next, we're going to start painting on some Dagz, and I find that it's easier to paint the Dagz along like panel edges. So any, like on this door, like any of the edges along it, you know, the bottom, sides, anything like that. And like the small panel in the center here is better suited for like the checks and stuff. So to simulate that, like I've glued this plastic card together, and in this smaller piece here, you just determine like how you want your Dagz to look. Do you want it to cover the entire surface, or do you want it to run like down, like only reach like halfway up the panel? And that's what I'm going to do with this. So it's going to be very small Dagz, and I just mark off where they're going to end up on the panel and start sketching a straight line, and then just add to either side to make that little triangle. And you just keep doing this down the panel, just moving slightly over and adding another dag, and then get done with that one. Try to make them the same size so it's fairly uniform. They won't be exact, but that's okay because it's Orkish. Now you can see on this plate, I already made some Dagz across the panel, and I'm going to show you how I did that without using a panel line or an edge. And it's pretty simple. Like, you just kind of make your own panel line. With this, I'm just going to lay down a strip of masking tape, and I'm going to basically create a panel with 2 strips of masking tape. And with these, they'll give you your straight edge that you can work off of, and then start creating your Dagz. Now, this method is great to use when you have open spaces and you want, or well, you can basically just create an area that you're going to paint in, and it protects everything around it. So you can determine the height of your Dagz just by placing, you know, a couple strips of tape. And like with the previous way, I draw a straight line, and then from there I just connect the diagonals. And going this way, you can start off really narrow and just make your dag as wide at the base as you like, and just add little by little until you build up the triangle that you want. And once you're done with that one, just rinse and repeat, and add as many Dagz as you'd like to for that area. It's okay if they're off by a little bit. I don't think they should look perfect. That's just my opinion. If you want them to look perfect, I mean, they make decals for that, and you don't have to hand paint it. And here's a few examples of how I've used Checks and Dagz and really other Ork glyphs throughout my army. For any infantry and small vehicles, I'll freehand them on using either just drawing out the grid or just individual checks. And for vehicles, I will usually just, I'll make a mask and then use the airbrush on the larger areas. Now on the strud, you can see that on the shoulder pads, I kind of rotate the direction of the checks. That's just to throw some variation in here. Like maybe they'd painted up a huge panel, with these checkers on it, and then just cutting, slicing pieces off this panel to make armor for, their dreads and vehicles. Alright, once again, this is just a few methods that I use to create checks and dags for my orcs. Hopefully you can take some of these and apply them to your own minis and get some inspiration or ideas from it. And I thank you for watching. Later.
Thanks for joining me today on Level Up Hobbies as I showed you how to easily decorate your orc vehicles and armor with checks and dags, that little detail that orcs love to put all over their possessions. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below, and don't forget to hit that bell icon so you can be notified whenever I publish new videos. Thanks again, and remember, build, paint, and play tabletop games. Later, guys.